if you are featured, quoted, or mentioned in an article, on a website, in a magazine, in a publication, you have the opportunities as a creator and a small business to leverage this in your marketing. If you are quoted or featured or mentioned in an article, you need to be paying attention to this. Now, we talk a lot about notifications so that you know when you're mentioned, because I get quoted and featured and mentioned a lot in some really big name publications without them ever speaking to me. I didn't know about these features. I didn't give my consent to any of these things. They found my videos and quoted me. They quoted me off of my social media. They found my website and used my information and then cited me as a source or featured me. And because I had an alert set up, which we talk about in other videos, I'll link that down below for you. You had the opportunity, and I had the opportunity to know when these things happen. I can then grab that logo and use it to my benefit. So I was recently featured in People magazine, in Yahoo Life. I have been featured on a bunch of national news networks where I've talked about different products and different services and different recommendations and different topics. And I can use that to my benefit by putting it where people can see. If someone talks about me, do they really talk about me if nobody knows? Now, you don't have to go spreading it around that I was just featured in this magazine and all these things if that's not your vibe. But you do have the opportunity to put this in a place where people who are important will see it. People who want to work with you, to buy your products or your services, to hire you, to have conversations with you, to have interviews about you. People who want to know who you are going to your website. And on your website, you need a specific section on your main page entitled As Seen On. Now, you can use other words, but those are the ones that communicate the most clearly where you have appeared. And this can be some kind of combination of where you've been featured or quoted or mentioned and where you've appeared for like stage conversations, panels that you've been on, live stream events that you've been on, anywhere you've been featured in a capacity where you are quoted or featured or mentioned, and a capacity where you have spoken to an audience or had conversations or been on a panel. All those things can go under As Seen On. Now, this is a very specific section you want higher on your website. It is not the top thing. It is not the most important thing. Get that most important section with who you are and how you serve people and why they should work with you up at the top. Then below that, in that next section or the section below that, you need your As Seen On section. And you can do this however you want. Different people design this different ways. It can just say As Seen On and the logos of the top couple of places. I've been featured in a lot of places, and I like to put most of them on there. I don't put all of them, but I do like to put most of them. Now, I have seen some people that just stick to 3 or 5. That's totally up to you. But I'm somebody who has done a lot. And if I've done a lot, I want you to know that I've done a lot. That really helps me to grow and to represent myself, especially as I'm getting brand deals and sponsorships and speaking engagements and appearances and things like that. So I am using this big and bold on my website. And you can make it fancy or you can make it just a small section. Some people have it just a very small bar with those logos right there, nice and pale, or they match the colors of the website. I like to have a full graphic. So I have a graphic of me with my name as seen on, and then logos of all the places that I have been featured. Not all of them, but most of them. And I update that as needed. Now, you can do this 2 ways if you want to do it how I do. You can just have a graphic that you put there, and then it's a solid graphic. Or you can put each individual logo there and link to the place that you are featured on. So I was featured in People magazine. I can link to the People magazine article. I was featured in Yahoo Live. I can link to that. I was featured on CBS News and NBC News nationally. I can link to those articles where I was quoted, featured, mentioned, whatever. If I was on an appearance and there's a recording of it on YouTube, I can link to that. If I have some write-up or some news thing where I can link it to, I can then link it to those individual graphics. So it depends on how you're designing your website or how your designer is designing your website. You can either do it individually and link out, or you can have one solid graphic, and that is just a solid graphic, which you can then use on your Facebook headers or on your social media headers or wherever you want. You can use this in a lot of different ways, but this gives you credibility. It gives you credentials. It gives you respect inside of the industry. So you want to make sure you're using this wisely. This is not meant for things that are not going to reflect well on you. There are a lot of places that will interview you without actually interviewing you. We call these content farms. We've talked about it before. I'll link a video for you. But that content farm, is not going to work to your benefit. People are wise to those things now. And if you're linking that as an as seen on, as featured on, that is not going to reflect well on you. So you want to make sure you do a little research before you put things on, and you want to use the top tiered things. So if you're on a national news network, that's going to be more important than a blogger who did an interview with you a few years ago. So be mindful of what you're doing and how you're doing it, and then leverage this to the best of your ability. You can go limited with just the best of the best. You can do most of, but not all. You can do all. It depends on what you do, what you want, and how it benefits you. And if you have more than one business like me, you can go across the board. So for me, I do as featured on for all of my platforms because I was featured on all of those things. So all of those go on all of my websites. Or you can say specific ones for specific things. So my social media educator life is just this stuff. My pet influencer life is just this stuff. My best-selling author stuff is just this stuff. I don't like that. I like to do across the board because I've done a lot. And so much of what I've done is actually a lot of crossover stuff, both social media educator and author, both social media educator and pet influencer. There's a lot of crossover. So I just like to do it as a whole. It also makes it easy for my graphics, so I can just make them nice and colorful, slap them on my website, and I'm ready to go. But it depends on who you are and what you want to do. But anytime you're featured, mentioned, quoted, whatever, that's a new logo for your website. Period. End of discussion. Grab their logos, slap it on your website, link it up to where you are featured, quoted, or mentioned, and you are good to go. And you can then leverage this to get new articles about you, new interviews about you, new speaking opportunities, new appearance opportunities. When you show that other people had trust on you, they are much more likely to trust you and book you in for whatever conversation they're looking to have with you or with someone like you. So drop your questions down below. We talk a lot about building up your reputation as an influencer and as a content creator and as a small business owner here on the channel. So now is the time to drop your questions. I've been doing this for well over a decade at this point. I've got lots of tips and tricks to help you get just as known and seen and featured as I am. And I would love to share this with you as well. And we're dropping daily videos helping you navigate the world of entrepreneurship to make sure that you're making this your most profitable year ever with the least amount of stress and overwhelm and time commitment on your content creation so you can live your best life while also running the best business you can. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.